The Mafia brutally attacked a woman and her daughter in a parking lot.
Hey, stop! What do you need help with? Stop!
They did their job well. Unaware the father is a mercenary who will design the most painful death for them all. Welcome back to Paramount Recapped. I don't have many subscribers, but your single comment is a ray of hope to motivate me. Things start off with a regular guy named Paul. He's just wrapped up a long day of work on his ranch, tired but ready to get home. As the sun starts dipping below the horizon, Paul hops in his truck and drives back. When he finally steps through the door, he's greeted warmly by his wife and their daughter, Rebecca. Dinner's ready, and the family's sharing some food, chatting about their day. While they're eating, Paul's wife mentions there's a live theater show happening that night in Kansas City. She suggests they all go together, make a night of it. But Paul apologizes, saying he can't make it. He's got an important job that night, moving a big group of cattle to another town. He insists that his wife and Rebecca still go and have fun. He even offers a solution. They can crash at his old buddy's place in Kansas City if it gets late. His wife agrees, thinking it'll be a nice little escape for the two of them. Shortly after, a buddy of Paul's shows up to help him get ready for the cattle delivery. Paul gives his wife and daughter a tight hug, reminds them to be cautious, and heads off to take care of his job. Meanwhile, Rebecca and her mom start packing up for their little trip to the city. Now, while that's going on, the scene switches to Kansas City, completely different vibe. We meet a dangerous crime boss named Jimmy. This guy's furious because some of the women in his crew had snatched and managed to escape. In a rage, he shoots one of his own men right in the face. He's not playing around. Then he orders his second-in-command to go out and grab more girls to fill the gap. Business is business for Jimmy, no matter how brutal. Back to Paul. He doesn't have a truck big enough to handle all the cattle, so he swings by his dad's place to borrow one. His dad's watching football, and the two have a short catch-up. While they're hanging out, Paul gets a video call from Rebecca. She just wanted to check in and let him know they were about to pull into the theater parking lot. Paul, smiling, tells them again to be careful and stay in touch. But then, right as Rebecca and her mom step out of the car, two sketchy guys approach them. Turns out they're working for Jimmy. Paul's wife instantly senses something's off and tries to shield Rebecca, but it escalates quickly. Before Paul can even make sense of what's happening, he watches helplessly through the phone as these men grab his daughter, and worse, shoot his wife in cold blood. Paul drops the phone, horrified and speechless. His father, sensing the chaos, steps in and tells Paul to pull himself together. Now's not the time to cry, he says, it's time to act. That's when we learn something surprising. Paul and his dad used to be elite government mercenaries, the kind of guys you send in when things get too dirty for regular soldiers. Fueled by rage and grief, Paul rushes home and starts grabbing his weapons. Meanwhile, his dad's not wasting any time either. He calls up two of Paul's old war buddies and tells them to get over there immediately. Within minutes, those two men, Isaac, the one with the hat, and Bolin, the clean-cut one, arrive. Paul's dad lays it out. Rebecca's been kidnapped, Paul's wife is dead, and it's time to go hunting. Bolin suggests going to the police, but Paul's dad shuts that down quick. The cops are just going to slow us down and waste our money, he says. This is a job for people who know how to end things fast. Paul comes back fully armed and makes it clear he wants to go with Isaac and Bolin, but asks his father to stay behind due to his age. The old man respects Paul's call, and the three of them hit the road, heading straight for Kansas City. Meanwhile, back in the city, Jimmy's goons dump Paul's wife's body like trash. Rebecca, now locked in some grimy back room with another kidnapped woman, is terrified. The other woman, clearly older and more experienced with this nightmare, tries to comfort her, clearly feeling bad that such a young girl is in this mess. Paul and his crew arrive in Kansas City and head straight to the theater. Paul remembers the parking lot where it all happened. He's looking around for any clue when he spots a street performer dressed as a clown. The guy's not helpful at first, asks for cash before giving any info. That ticks Paul off. He gives the clown a rough shove and makes it clear he's not in the mood for games. The clown quickly backs off and agrees to show them where the gravel parking lot is. The clown leads them right to the place. Paul sees his wife's abandoned car and tells Bolin and Isaac to scout the area for any signs of the attackers while he checks the vehicle. That's when he spots two men lurking nearby. One of them is Jimmy's second-in-command. Paul yells, but the two guys take off running. Paul draws his gun and fires, hitting one of them while the other slips away. Bolin and Isaac rush back as Paul drags the wounded guy into their vehicle. They take him to an empty warehouse for some good old-fashioned interrogation. Paul recognizes the man from the video. He was there when his wife was killed. Now, Paul isn't exactly in a forgiving mood. He grabs a toolbox and starts going to town on the guy. Bolin and Isaac try to intervene, but Paul's past training and rage have taken over. He's completely in the zone. He keeps pressing the guy for info until the man blurts out, "Westport." That's the clue Paul needed. The guy collapses afterward, barely alive. At this point, Bolin's had enough. He's not built for this kind of brutality anymore. He says he's out and leaves, despite Paul's offer to go if he wants. Isaac, however, sticks around. He's ride or die. In the car, Paul asks Isaac to look up Westport. Turns out it's a clinic run by a dentist, still active in Kansas City. They figure it's a front, and without wasting a second more, the two of them head off to the clinic, determined to find Rebecca and bring her home, no matter who they have to go through. As soon as Paul and Isaac got to their next stop, they didn't waste time. They stormed into the building, guns ready. The place looked like a clinic from the outside, but once inside, it became clear this wasn't your average dental office. It was actually some kind of underground party spot packed with shady characters and addicts. Not exactly what they were expecting. While moving through the building, they eventually found the so-called dentist, who turned out to be the owner of this sketchy operation. The guy tried to make a break for it, but Paul wasn't having any of that. He caught him quickly and shoved him into a corner for questioning. Paul pulled out a photo of his daughter Rebecca and demanded to know where she was. The dentist hesitated, but eventually confessed that Rebecca was being held at a print shop. Only it wasn't really for printing. It was just a cover for human trafficking, all run by Jimmy, the mobster behind everything. Paul pressed it for more. "How do you know all this?" he asked. The dentist, sweating bullets, explained that he wasn't just some hired help. He actually owned a piece of Jimmy's entire operation. About 20%, to be exact. That's why he knew where the girl was being kept. Paul didn't waste any more time. He forced the dentist into his own car and told him to drive straight to that so-called screen printing factory where Rebecca was supposed to be. But just as they stepped outside the building, trouble showed up. Jimmy's gang had somehow gotten word and surrounded them fast. Paul, always thinking ahead, grabbed the dentist and held a gun to his head, warning Jimmy to back off or the dentist would get bullet. Jimmy, though, didn't flinch. In fact, he laughed in Paul's face and said he'd be happy if the dentist got taken out. Less profit to share. Then he waved his hand and gave the kill order. Take them all out, including the dentist. What followed was pure chaos. A shootout broke out right there in front of the clinic. Paul did what he could, but he was outnumbered. Isaac and the dentist were both gunned down, and Paul himself got hit and collapsed, unconscious. Jimmy didn't want to end it there. He ordered his men to haul Paul off to his main headquarters and finish the job there. On the way, Paul was slumped in the back seat, still barely alive. But before Jimmy's guys could dump him and pull the trigger, a total wild card entered the scene, a random musician. Out of nowhere, this guy showed up and used his guitar as a weapon, taking out both of Jimmy's men in a blink. He dragged Paul to safety, checked his wounds, and said, "Good thing they missed your lungs." Paul later woke up in a small house, bandaged up but still hurting badly. He stumbled outside, trying to figure out where he was and who had saved him. That's when he saw a familiar face. It was Randall, an old buddy from his childhood. Paul's late wife had even mentioned Randall before. Paul thanked him with everything he had. Randall looked at Paul with concern and explained that although he was alive, he wasn't in great shape. A few bullets were still inside him, and without surgery, things could get worse. The plan was to take Paul to a hospital right away, but Paul shook his head. He said he didn't have time for hospitals. His daughter was still out there, and Jimmy had to pay. Randall invited Paul back inside where it was cooler and safer talk. There, Randall shared something strange but intriguing. He said he knew someone who could help, a spiritual healer or shaman who ran a mysterious sect. According to Randall, this guy could fix any wound with just a touch. Sounded crazy, but Paul figured it was worth a shot. He needed to be back on his feet fast, so they hit the road. A short while later, they arrived at a secluded place where the shaman lived. Randall did the introductions and explained Paul's situation. The shaman looked him over and said healing him would be no problem, but there was a catch. In exchange, Paul had to join the shaman's spiritual order. Paul agreed, but with one condition: he'd join after saving his daughter and finishing off Jimmy. The shaman accepted the deal, and, with just a single touch, Paul's wounds closed up like magic. Even his blood-stained clothes were suddenly spotless. Paul couldn't believe his eyes. He thanked the shaman and promised to come back later. With Paul back to full strength, he and Randall suited up and left. They weren't wasting another minute. It was time to storm Jimmy's factory and get Rebecca out. As they reached the location, they saw that the place was crawling with guards. They decided to play it smart. First, they had to gear up. They found some weapons, and Paul took a moment to smear dirt and paint on his face like an old war soldier, getting mentally prepared for battle. Meanwhile, inside the factory, Rebecca was in a bad state. She had a burning fever, and another woman being held prisoner with her pleaded for medicine. But the guard gave them something dangerous instead, a toxic substance that killed Rebecca almost instantly. The woman, enraged, snapped. She attacked the guard, killed him, and grabbed his weapon. Fueled by revenge, she fought her way out, gunning down several guards and finally escaping by stealing a car. Back at the factory, Randall had slipped in through a back entrance, using his guitar like a weapon again. Paul, on the other hand, went in with full force, taking out guards one at a time. Eventually, Paul crossed paths with Jimmy's trusted right-hand man. The two had a brutal fight, but Paul eventually overpowered and killed him. Paul then pushed deeper into the building and entered Jimmy's main room. But Jimmy wasn't there. Frustrated, Paul yelled out for him. Suddenly, Jimmy appeared from the shadows and shot Paul in the leg. Jimmy taunted him, saying he admired his dedication, but it was all pointless. Rebecca was already dead. Those words broke something inside Paul. He screamed in rage and launched himself at Jimmy, despite being seriously injured. He fought back as hard as he could, but it was clear he wasn't going to win. Jimmy got the upper hand and prepared to kill Paul. But then, bang, Jimmy was shot down. Randall had arrived just in time, saving Paul once again. As Paul lay dying, Randall tried desperately to save him. Meanwhile, in Paul's mind, he slipped into a dream. In that peaceful space, he saw his wife and Rebecca dressed in white, smiling at him. He ran to hug them, apologizing that he wasn't able to protect them. With tears in his eyes, Paul decided to go with them. In the real world, Paul stopped breathing. Randall looked down at his fallen friend with deep sadness. But at least, Paul hadn't joined the sect after all, because word later got out that the shamans group was actually a dangerous cult. And that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.